Hey everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm live to do day 42 of JumpStart Your Thinking, and I'm starting a new book today since we finished The Purpose Driven Life yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. This is day 42 of JumpStart Your Thinking. It's a 90-day improvement plan to improve your thinking. It's my belief that your beliefs and your thoughts create your reality. And so quantum physics is now catching up and telling us this. Our inner world creates our outer world. So if you obey all the rules, you will miss all the fun. Who likes rules anyway, especially the ones that are in place? The beginning of awakening is questioning and going against the status quo. The fifth way to find your creativity is to get out of your box. While I don't think it's necessary to break all the rules, many are in a place to protect us. I do think it's unwise to follow rules blindly or to allow self-imposed limitations to hinder us. Creative thinkers are out-of-the-box people. They know they must repeatedly break out of the box of their own history and personal limitations in order to experience creative breakthroughs. The most effective way to help yourself get out of the box is to expose yourself to new paradigms. One way you can do that is by traveling to new places. Having new experiences helps you grow and expand. So explore other cultures, countries, and traditions. Find out how people very different from you live and think. Another is to read on new subjects. I'm naturally curious and love to learn. Me all the way. But I still have a tendency to read books only on my favorite subjects, such as leadership. I sometimes have to force myself to read books that broaden my thinking because I know it's worth it. If you want to break out of your own box, get into somebody else's. Read broadly. So day 42, the journal prompt is: what country might you visit on your next vacation in order to immerse yourself in a different culture? What book out of your area of expertise will you read now to stretch your mind and get you outside your box? Well, I don't really have books. All my books are just on personal growth, mostly. And so, but they're all like different various types of things. Actually, the one, The Purpose Driven Life, was kind of like, yeah, it's my purpose, but it was a little bit, not everything resonated with me. So that one was a little bit outside my comfort zone, but I committed to it and I finished the book. So, what country? I want to go to Egypt, hands down flat. So, all right, y'all, I am super excited to start this new book. So I finished The Purpose Driven Life, which was a 40-day spiritual journey to find your purpose. And now I am starting this book. It's called Limitless by Jim Kwik. Jim Kwik is part of Mind Valley. Mind Valley is like a huge personal growth corporation. They just have tons of speakers and courses and things that you can do. I've done tons of them. And I just love Vishen. He's the creator of Mind Valley. And Jim Kwik is a little Asian dude who, he's a brain coach. He teaches people how to learn faster. So Jim Kwik knows how to get the maximum out of me as a human being. Will Smith. Before I jump into reading it, your brain is the most powerful technology in the world, but you never got the owner's manual until now. That is so true. We're not taught the power of our minds. You have no limitations. We're literally limitless beings. In spite of what others have told you, your potential is infinite when you know how to use your brain. For over 25 years, renowned brain coach Jim Kwik has worked closely with top actors, athletes, CEOs, and superachievers in all walks of life to unlock their true capabilities. In this groundbreaking book, he reveals the science-based practices and field-tested techniques that the world's top performers use to celebrate their learning and create world-class results. Get ready to master your habits, learn how to break negative patterns, and effortlessly create new positive routines. Unleash your productivity, vanquish the 4 supervillains hijacking your natural pathways. Tap into boundless motivation, access an unlimited fuel source to reach your goals. Eliminate mental fog, get expert techniques and tips from the best brain foods to ways of optimizing your sleep. Sharpen your focus, be clear, and become unstoppable in a world of distractions and overload. And learn anything, read faster, make better decisions, and confidently remember everything from names to languages, no matter your age. At the heart of Limitless lies a life-changing secret. When you learn how to learn, you can break free of limiting beliefs, achieve new levels of success, and lead a truly exceptional life. This book is not a theory. It's a practical, easy, and proven blueprint that shows you exactly what to do to unleash your own limitless powers. So, I'm going to just go ahead and jump in. I'm going to skip the foreword. I am super, super duper excited to read this book. For my readers and students and the limitless heroes in you, thank you for your time and trust. This one's for you. Forward. Should I skip the introduction? I think so. You know when you're a child and your imagination is limitless and you really believe in magic? I thought I had superpowers. Michelle Fun. Why do we lose our imagination? Why do we stop questioning? Part 1. Now hold on. If an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. If broken by an inside force, life begins. Great things always begin from the inside. Jim Quick. All right, y'all. Part 1. Free your mind. We do not need magic to transform our world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. J.K. Rowling. Becoming limitless. I'm so stupid. I don't understand. I'm too dumb to learn. These were my mantras growing up. Sound familiar? What are your constant thoughts and that you tell yourself, right? What is your self-talk like? There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't tell myself that I was slow, dumb, and that I would never learn to read, much less amount to anything later in life. If a pill existed that could supercharge my brain and make me smarter in one swallow, as there was in 2011 movie's Limitless, starring Bradley Cooper, if you've ever seen that movie, Limitless, I would have given anything to take it. I wasn't the only one who felt the way I did about myself. If you'd asked my teachers when I was a kid, many would have said that I was the last person they'd expect to be writing this book for you. Back then, they would have been surprised to know that I was reading a book, let alone writing one. This all stems from an incident in kindergarten that completely altered the course of my life. What happens is we go through things and we create trauma, and then you create those limiting beliefs. That's where they stem from. Negative emotions, negative experiences, limiting decisions. You make the decision that I'm stupid because that's what people are telling me, and then subconsciously you act it out. That's why it's so freaking important how you talk to yourself and how you talk to your children, because if you're walking around all day saying to your kids, like, why are you so bad? Why are you so bad? Or why can't you get anything right? Or they're being programmed to think that they're stupid, they can't get anything right, and guess what? Then they're going to act that out subconsciously. So this dude was in class one day, and there were sirens outside the window. Everyone in the classroom took notice, and the teacher looked out and she saw fire trucks. The entire class responded to this information the way kindergartners do. They immediately rushed to the windows. I was particularly excited because by that point, I was already obsessed with superheroes, and I still am. To me, firefighters were the closest thing to real-life superheroes that I knew. I bolted to the window with everyone else. The only problem was that I wasn't tall enough to be able to look down at the fire trucks. One kid went to grab his chair to stand on, and that inspired the rest of us to do the same. I ran back to my desk to get mine, pushing it right up against the huge iron radiator that ran along the bottom of the windows. I got up on my chair, saw the firefighters, and completely lit up. This was so exciting. My eyes stared and my mouth gasped as I watched these courageous heroes in action with their seemingly impenetrable uniforms and their bright red vehicle. But then one of the other kids grabbed my chair from beneath me, which caused me to lose balance, go flying headfirst into the radiator. Yikes. I hit the metal heater extremely hard, and I started losing blood. The school rushed me to the hospital, where doctors tended to my wounds. But they were candid with my mother afterward. The injury to my brain was not mild. I would have been upset at the time with that child. The child that pulled the chair out. My mother said I was never quite the same after that. Where I had been energized, confident, and a curious child before, now I was noticeably shut down and had a new difficulty learning. Sounds like vaccine injury too. I found it extremely hard to focus. I couldn't concentrate and my memory was awful. As you can imagine, school became an ordeal for me. Teachers would repeat themselves until I learned to pretend to understand. And while the other kids were learning to read, I couldn't make any sense out of the letters. Do you remember getting in those reading circles, passing around the book, and having to read out loud? For me, that was the worst, nervously waiting as the book crept closer and closer, only to look at the page and not understand one word. I think that's where my crippling fear of public speaking initially came from. It would take me another 3 years to be able to read, and it continued to be a struggle and an uphill battle for a long time after that. I'm not sure I ever would have learned to read if it weren't for the heroes I met and saw in comic books. Regular books couldn't hold my attention at all, but my fascination with comics drove me to keep pushing myself until I could read their stories without waiting for someone else to read them to me. I would read them by flashlight under my covers late at night. Those stories gave me hope that one person could overcome impossible odds. My favorite superheroes growing up were X-Men, not because they were the strongest, but because they were misunderstood and widely different. I felt I could relate to them. They were mutants, they didn't fit into society, and people who didn't understand them shunned them. That was me, minus the superpowers. The X-Men were outcasts, and so was I. I belonged in their world. I grew up in Westchester County, a suburb of New York City, and I was super excited one night to discover that, according to the comic books, Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters was located near me. When I was 9 years old, I would get on my bike nearly every weekend to ride around my neighborhood looking for the school. I was obsessed. I thought if only I could locate it, I could find in that school a place where I would finally fit in. A place where it was safe to be different. A place where I could discover and develop my own superpowers. The boy with the broken brain. In the real world, life was not very kind. It was around this time that my grandmother, who lived with us and helped raise me, started showing advanced signs of dementia. Watching someone you love lose their mind and memory is hard to describe. It was like losing her over and over again until she passed. She was my world, and combined with my learning challenges, she is why I am so passionate about brain health and fitness. Back in school, I was bullied and made fun of, and not just on the playground, but in the classroom too. I remember one day in elementary school, a teacher, frustrated because I wasn't getting the lesson, pointed at me and said, "That's the boy with the broken brain." I was just crushed to realize that this was how she saw me, and that others probably saw me the same way. Often when you put a label on someone or something, you create a limit. I say that about God. Hey, often when you put a label on someone or something, you create a limit. I love that because the label becomes the limitation. I love that because I say that about God. People say, God, you can't label God, because when you give it a name, you label or you limits all that it is. Hi, Ava. So, adults have to be very careful with their external words because these quickly become a child's internal words. I literally just said this a second ago. You have to watch not only your own self-talk, but how you talk to your children, because that's going to become their subconscious programming. Adults have to be very careful with their external words because these quickly becomes a child's internal words. That's what happened with me in that moment. Whenever I struggled to learn, did badly on a quiz, wasn't picked for a team in gym class, or fell behind my other classmates, I would tell myself it was because my brain was broken. This is Jim Quick. He's telling his story. He's a brain coach now. He had a brain injury when he was younger, and they used to call him the kid with the broken brain. Right? He's proof that we can expand our minds and continue to learn and increase our human potential. So how could I possibly expect to do as well as others did? I was damaged. My mind didn't work like everyone else's. Even when I studied much harder than my schoolmates, my grades never reflected the effort I was putting in. I was too stubborn to give up and managed to move on from grade to grade, but I was hardly thriving. While I was advanced in math because of the help of a few of my academically talented friends, I was horrible at most of the other subjects, especially classes such as English, reading, foreign language, and music. Then in my freshman year of high school, things got to the point where I was at risk of failing English. My parents were called in by the teacher to discuss what I could do to muster a passing grade. She offered an extra credit project for me. I was to write a report comparing the lives and accomplishment of two geniuses, Leonardo da Vinci and Albert Einstein. She told me that if I did a good job on this report, she would be able to give me enough points to make sure I passed the class. Two great people there, Leonardo da Vinci and Albert Einstein, geniuses. I considered this to be a huge opportunity, a chance to hit the reset button on what had been a difficult start to my high school career. I committed everything I had to writing the best report I possibly could. I spent hours and hours at the library after school trying to learn everything I could learn about these two brilliant minds while working on this paper. Interestingly, during that research, I came across multiple mentions that Albert Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci each struggled with alleged learning difficulties. After weeks of effort, I typed up the final report. I was so proud of what I've done. I had the pages professionally bound. This report was a statement for me. It was the way I was going to announce to the world what I was capable of doing. The day the report was due, I put it in my backpack, excited about handing it to my teacher, and even more excited about the response I anticipated she would have to what I've done. I planned to give her at the end of class, so I sat through whatever we're doing that day, trying to concentrate, but constantly finding my thoughts flittering back to the look I expected to see on my teacher's face when I presented her with the report. But then she threw me a curveball I was not prepared to hit. About halfway through the class period, the teacher ended her lesson and told the students that she had a surprise for them. She said that I had been working on an extra credit report, and she would like me to present it to the class right now. I had spent most of my school life trying to shrink so small that I wouldn't be called on in class. When you are the broken one, you don't feel like you have much to offer. I was beyond shy. I didn't like to draw attention to myself. My superpower back then was being invisible. I was only deathly afraid of speaking in public. I'm not exaggerating here. If you hooked me up to a heart monitor at that moment, I might have broken the machine. On top of this, I could barely breathe. There was simply no way I was going to be able to stand in front of everyone and talk to them about the work I'd done. So I took the only option I saw available to me. I'm sorry, I didn't do it, I stuttered, just barely getting the words out of my mouth. Oh man, the expression of disappointment on my teacher's face, so different from the expression I'd fantasized earlier, was so profound that my heart nearly broke. But I just couldn't do what she wanted me to do. When class was over, after everyone had left, I threw my report in the garbage, and along with it, a big part of my self-respect and worth. Why wouldn't you just hand it in to her? Just say, listen, I told you that I didn't do it because I didn't want to read it in front of the dang class. But here it is. You are closer than you think. Somehow, in spite of all the troubles I had in school, I managed to get into a local university. I thought being a freshman in college meant a last opportunity to make a fresh start. I dreamt about making my family proud and to showing the world, and more importantly, myself, I did have the potential to succeed. I was in a new environment. College professors taught differently than high school teachers did, and no one at the college had the preconceived notions about me. I worked my butt off, but I actually wound up doing even worse in my college classes than high school. A few months into this, I started to face my reality. I couldn't see the point of wasting time and money that I did not have. I was ready to quit school altogether. I told my friend about my plans, and he suggested that before I made a decision, I go with him to visit his family for the weekend. He thought that getting me away from the campus might give me some perspective. When we arrived, his father showed me around their property before dinner. Along the way, he asked how school was going for me. It was the worst question anyone could have asked me at that time, and I'm sure my response stunned him. I erupted into tears, not holding back the tears, crying, but straight up bawling. I could see he was taken aback by this, and his innocent question had broken the dam holding back so many pent up emotions. I told him the whole boy with the broken brain story while he listened patiently. His whole life, Jim Quick was told he was the boy with the broken brain. He had a brain injury and he couldn't learn. And now he's a brain coach. That's so amazing. When I finished, he looked me directly in the eyes. Jim, why are you in school? He said. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? And what do you want to have? What do you want to share? I didn't have immediate answers to any of these questions because no one had ever asked me them before, but I felt as though I needed to answer them now. I started to speak, and he stopped me. He tore a couple pieces of paper from his pocket diary and told me to write down my answers. In this book, I'll show you how to ask questions to learn and achieve anything faster. I spent the next several minutes writing a bucket list. When I finished, I began folding up the papers and preparing to put them in my pocket. But as I was doing so, my friend's father grabbed the pages out of my hand. I freaked out because I didn't think what I'd written was going to be read by anyone else, especially this complete stranger. But he opened the pages and read while I stewed in my discomfort. It seemed as though he took hours to read what I had written, though I'm sure it was only a minute or two. When he finished, he said, "You're this close," holding the index fingers on his right and left hands about a foot apart. "You're to getting every single thing on the list." That statement seemed absurd to me. I told him I couldn't crack this list if I had 10 lifetimes. But then he took his fingers and, without expanding the distance between them, placed one on each side of my head. You're only this far away. The space he was describing was my brain. "That's the key," he said. "Come with me, I have something to show you." We walked back to the house where he took me to the room that I'd never seen before. It was filled wall to wall, floor to ceiling with books. Now remember, at that point in my life, I was not a fan of books. It was like being in a room full of snakes. But what made it even worse was that he started grabbing snakes from his shelves and handing them to me. I looked at the titles and realized these were biographics and incredible men and women throughout history, as well as some early personal growth books, such as The Magic of Thinking Big. I think I read that one. The Power of Positive Thinking. I read that one. And Think and Grow Rich. I've read that one. Jim, I want you to read one of these books a week. My first thought was, have you not been listening to anything I've been saying? I didn't ask this out loud, but I did respond. I don't know how I could do that. You know, reading doesn't come easily to me, and I have so much schoolwork to do. He held up a finger, saying, "Don't let school interfere with your education." I later learned he was paraphrasing a quote attributed to Mark Twain. I've heard that quote before. "Look," I said, "I understand how reading these books would be really helpful, but I don't want to make any promises I can't keep." He paused and then reached back into his pocket, pulled out my bucket list, and started reading each one out loud. There was something about hearing my dreams in another person's voice that messed with my mind and my soul, something fierce. Truth be told, many of the things in the list were things I wanted to do for my family, things my parents could never afford or would never have done for themselves, even if they could afford them. Hearing this read out loud moved me in ways I didn't think possible. It deeply tapped me into my drive and purpose. We will unleash your motivation together in part 3. When he was finished, I told him I would do exactly what he suggested, though secretly I had no idea how I was going to accomplish that. Asking the right question. I went back to school after the weekend, armed with the books he had given me. On my desk were 2 piles, one that I had read for school and one that I promised to read. The scale of what I'd agreed to register. Wait, what? The scale of what I'd agreed to registered with me. How was I going to make a dent in these piles when reading was such a labor for me? How was I already struggling to get through the first pile? What was I going to do? Where would I get the time? So I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't exercise, I didn't watch television or spend time with friends. Instead, I practically lived in the library until one night when I was passed out from sheer exhaustion and fell down a flight of stairs, sustaining yet another head injury. It wasn't until 2 days later that I woke up in the hospital. I thought I had died, and maybe a part of me wished that I had. It was a truly dark and low point in my life. I was wasting away. My weight was to 117 pounds, and I was so dehydrated that I was hooked up to IV bags. As miserable as I was, I said to myself, there has to be a better way. At that moment, a nurse came into my room carrying a mug of tea with her with a picture of Einstein on it, the very same subject of the book report that inspired me to dig deep and study back in grade school. The quote next to his image said, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." So funny because I watched a video about quantum physics and consciousness, and that quote was in there as well. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. That's when it dawned on me. Maybe I was asking the wrong question. I started to wonder, what was my real problem? I knew I was a slow learner, but I had been thinking the same way for years. I realized that I was trying to solve my learning problems by thinking the way I'd been taught to think, to just work harder. But what if I could teach myself a better method to learn? What if I could learn in a way that was more efficient, effective, and even enjoyable? What if I could learn how to learn faster? I committed in that very moment to finding that way, and with that commitment, my mindset began to shift. I asked the nurse for a course bulletin and flipped through it, page after page. After a couple hundred pages, I could find nothing but classes on what to learn. Spanish, history, math, science, but there were no classes teaching students how to learn. So, learning how to learn. When I got out of the hospital, I was so intrigued by the idea of learning how to learn that I set my studies aside and focused only on the books that my mentor gave me, as well as books I found on adult learning theory, multiple intelligence theory, neuroscience, personal growth, educational psychology, speed reading, and even ancient mnemonics. I wanted to know what older cultures did in the past to pass on knowledge before they had external storage devices like printing press and computers. I was obsessed to solve this riddle. How does the brain work? So I can work my brain. About a couple months of deep immersion into my new self-directed studies, a light switch flipped on. My ability to focus was stronger. I started to understand new concepts because I was able to concentrate. I was no longer easily distracted. I could better recall information that I had studied weeks before with little difficulty. I had a new level of energy and curiosity. For the first time in my life, I could read and comprehend information in a fraction of the time that it used to take. My newfound competence gave me a sense of confidence that I've never felt before. My daily life changed too. I was clear. I knew what to do to move myself forward, and I unblocked an empowering and sustainable sense of motivation. With these results, my mindset changed and I started to believe that anything was possible. But I was also upset. It seemed to me all of my years of self-doubt and suffering could have been avoided if this critical method of meta-learning, learning how to learn, had been taught in school. I remember teachers telling me constantly to study and concentrate harder. Telling a child to do things like concentrate is like telling them to play the ukulele. It's very difficult to do without even being taught how. It's funny, I call my daughter ukulele. And following the hero's journey, I couldn't help but share the treasure and lessons I learned. I started tutoring these methods to other students. The turning point came when I worked with a freshman who wanted to learn how to read faster, boot comprehension, and retain the information she was studying. She worked diligently and achieved her goal of reading 30 books in 30 days. I knew how she did it. I taught her the method you'll learn in chapter 14. But I wanted to know why. I discovered that her motivation was that her mother had been diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and she was determined to save her by studying books on health, wellness, and medicine. Months later, she called me crying tears of joy to tell me that her mother's cancer was in remission. I'm going to cry. It was in that moment that I realized that if knowledge is power, then learning is our superpower. And our capacity to learn is limitless. That's true. And at some point we stop learning because we stop questioning, because we just fall into the system, conform, and go with the status quo. And the status quo, you stop learning. You stop questioning. So we simply need to be shown how to access it. Seeing the way this woman's life was changed ignited in me a purpose, allowing me to recognize what became my life's mission: to teach the mindset, motivation, and methods to upgrade your brain and learn anything faster so you can unlock your exceptional life. Over the course of more than 2 decades, I've developed a reliable and proven set of practical methods to enhance learning, many of which appear in this book. I have not only kept my promise to read a book a week, but continue to serve and support everyone from children labeled learning disabled to seniors with brain aging challenges. Our team, dedicated to the memory of my grandmother, passionately supports Alzheimer's research. We all know Alzheimer's. If you don't know, it's caused from metal building up in the brain, specifically metals from vaccines and other sources as well. But yeah, and we believe education is every child's birthright, funding the creation of schools around the world from Guatemala to Kenya, providing healthcare, clean water, and learning for children in need via amazing organizations such as We Charity and Pencils of Promise. That's our mission: to build better, brighter brains. We're leaving no brain behind. I've taught these techniques to others with astonishing results, leading me to address more than 150,000 people in live audiences each year in every field imaginable, to serve as the brain coach to top personalities in sports and entertainment, to train at many of the world's leading companies and universities, to head a large accelerated learning online platform with students from 195 countries, and to host a top educational podcast called Quick Brain with tens of millions of downloads, and have my teaching received hundreds of millions of video views. This book is filled with lessons and practical advice I've learned over the years, along with wisdom and resources from many of the guest experts who have been featured on our show. I say all of this because, having dedicated my life to researching and teaching this subject, I know what's inside this book, and more importantly, I know what's inside of you. Finding Professor X School. There's a serendipitous coda to this story. As I mentioned, I regularly offer brain coaching to CEOs and their teams. A few years ago, Jim Giannopoulos, the CEO and chairman of 20th Century Fox, invited me to do a coaching session with his executive team. I went onto the film lot on Friday morning and spent several hours with top staff members. They were particularly open to my message, and they instantly connected with the techniques. When the session was over, Jim came up to me and said, "That was incredible. It was One of the very best training sessions we've ever held. I was delighted to hear this, of course. Who doesn't love positive feedback? Later, during a tour of the lot, my eye landed on a poster for the Wolverine movie, which was scheduled to come out later that year. I pointed to the poster and said, I can't wait to see that film. I'm a huge fan. He related to the X-Men because he felt like X-Men were outcasts, and so was he. So, love them. The X-Men have played a major role in my life. I went on to tell him about my childhood brain injury and how comic books helped me to learn to read, and my search for Professor X's school. He smiled at me. You know, we have another 30 days of shooting on the next X-Men movie in Montreal. Why don't you come along and spend a week on the set? The actors would love to work with you. So he got to work with them. Isn't that amazing? There was no way I was going to turn this down. I'd never been on a movie set before, and this wasn't just any movie set. It was an X-Men movie set. The next morning, we got on the plane. They called the X-Jet. The other passengers included most of the mutant cast, and I found myself sitting between Jennifer Lawrence and Halle Berry. This was turning out to be the best day ever. On the plane and the next week on set, I got to share some of my brain tips for speed reading scripts and for remembering lines with some of the extraordinary cast and crew. And guess what? The very first scene I got to see them shoot took place in Professor X's school, the very place I'd spent endless days imagining and searching for when I was a kid. It was such a surreal moment for me. What's one of your dreams? One that is ever present, like a splinter in your brain. Imagine it in vivid detail. Visualize it, feel it, believe it, and work for it daily. Amazingly, that's not the best part of this story. When I got back from the trip, I came home to find a package waiting for me. It was huge, about the size of a large flat-screen TV. I opened the package and pulled out an enormous framed photograph of me with the entire X-Men cast. The photo had a note from the chairman which read, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your superpowers with all of us. I know you've been looking for your superhero school ever since you were a child. Here's your class photo. I'm such a punk. See the actual full-color super photo at limitlessbook.com. So, unlimiting together. Unlimiting is a noun, the act or process of casting aside inaccurate, restrictive perceptions of one's potential and embracing the reality that with the right mindset, motivation, and methods, there are no limitations. That's why it's so important to get rid of limiting beliefs. And now, as a coach doing neuro-linguistic programming, I can do that. I have the techniques, the tools in my belt, so to speak, to help people get rid of limiting beliefs, because the only limitations that we have are the limitations that we place on ourselves, the ones that are here, like the guy said. It's all here in your mind. So for so much of my life, I allowed myself to be defined by my perceived restrictions. I'd gotten what I thought was a terrible break when I was a kid, and I was convinced that this had set the course for a compromised future. But with the help of some key people, I came to discover that my personal or my perceived restrictions were not really restrictions at all. They were merely obstacles I needed to overcome or limitations I needed to unlearn. And when I did, what I could learn to do or to be or do each day became limitless. Becoming limitless is not just about accelerated learning, speed reading, or having an incredible memory. Yes, you will learn how to do all that and more, but being limitless is not about being perfect. It's about progressing beyond what you currently believe is possible. Just as you've learned your limits from your family, culture, and life experiences, you can unlearn them. See, people, you might have grew up hearing something your whole entire life, that you're stupid, or you're not enough, or you're not a good singer, or you're not good at this, or you're bad at that, and then you have taken on that belief, you came into agreement with it, and now it's part of your belief system, and your beliefs create your reality. You can shift those beliefs. These constraints are only temporary obstacles that you can learn to overcome. What I have come to find over my years of working with people is that most everyone limits and shrinks their dreams to fit their current reality. Oh, that's not possible for me. I can't do that. I'm too this, I'm too that. I'm not enough of this, I'm not enough of that. We convince ourselves that the circumstances we're in, the beliefs we've accepted, and the path we are on is who we are and who we will always be. And that's just not true. But there is another choice. You can learn to unlimit and expand your mindset, your motivation, and your methods to create a limitless life. When you do what others want, you can live how others can't. By reading this book, you have taken an important step. Remember, one step in a better direction can completely change your destination. The key when you are taking your steps is to have a map, a model of success. Armed with this, there is no trial or dragon you can't overcome. So here it is. So this is the limitless model. It's your mindset, your methods, which is the process, and your motivation, which is the purpose. So it's mindset, that's the possibility. Your mindset is a collection of your beliefs, what you believe is true about you, what you believe is true about the world, and what you believe is possible. Your mindset is possibility. Your methods are the process. How are you doing it? Your motivation is your purpose, your why. Why are you doing it? And when you combine them all, implementation, that is when you become limitless. You combine the mindset with the process and the purpose, that's when you're on fire. That's when you're getting shit done. The limitless model, you can learn to be, do, have, and share with no constraints. I wrote this book to prove this to you. If you are not learning or living at your full potential, which most of us aren't, let's be honest, if there is a gap between your current reality and your desired reality, here's the reason. There's a limit that must be released and replaced in one of these three areas. A limit in your mindset. You entertain a low belief in yourself, your capabilities, what you deserve, or what is possible. And that's the story to be true for most people. They don't have the mindset because we've been trained to go with the system, to be dumbed down, drugged up, and disempowered. And we've lost touch with our true divine selves, our true spiritual nature, which is where our power lies, right here within us. A limit in your motivation. You lack the drive, purpose, or energy to take action. Your why has to be strong, super duper strong, or you'll just give up. A limit in your methods. You were taught and are acting on a process that is not effective to create the results you desire. You have to take the right steps. Otherwise, you're just going to be working for nothing. Inspired action. Taking inspired action in flow. This applies to an individual, a family, an organization. We all have our own unique story of struggles and strengths. Whatever your situation happens to be, here's the best part. You're not alone. I'm going to help you become limitless in your own way. Within the three-part framework you're about to learn, limitless mindset, limitless motivation, limitless methods, let me break it down. Mindset, the what. Deeply held beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions we create about who we are, how the world works, what we are capable of and deserve, and what is possible. Like I just said, your mindset is a collection of your beliefs, what you believe to be true about you, what you believe to be true about the world, and yourself. So what were you taught when you were younger? Like, what was your self-talk like? Or what were your parents telling you? What were your teachers telling you? Right? Hi, Jen. Because that's how your belief system started. In the first 7 years of life, you're literally being programmed with the foundation of your beliefs. Where was I? Oh, so the beliefs about you, the beliefs about the world. We're told we live in a world where there's war and there's poverty and there's sickness, and we feed into that. It becomes part of our belief system, and therefore then we give it power. But see, that doesn't have to be that way. We can take our power back and invest our energy into a better world, and we can literally create it, okay, collectively. And then what you believe is possible, right? Because all things are literally possible. So you got to get rid of the limiting beliefs. Your motivation, like I said, the why, the purpose one has for taking action, the energy required for someone to behave in a particular way. What is your purpose? What is your reason? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why am I reading this book? Why am I reading all these books? Because I want to become better, because I want to be able to help other people more. So my why is strong. I want to break free out of the dang system, and I want to help others break out of it and manifest heaven on earth, baby. Yeah, I said it. So method, the how, a specific process of accomplishing something, especially an orderly, logically, or systematic way of instruction. So how are you doing it? How are you going about it? You got to take the right steps. On another note, about the diagram on the previous page, you'll see that where mindset crosses over with motivation, I have the word inspiration. I missed that. Inspiration is so important. It is that, I see it. Okay, I see it there. Inspiration is taking inspired action, like listening, like not doing it out of a place of, oh my God, I gotta get this done. I have to do this. I have to do that. No, like you enjoy what you're doing. You're following your passion to find your purpose. You love what you do, and you take inspired action. So you're inspired, but you don't know which methods to employ or where to channel your energy. Where motivation and method intersect, you have implementation. In this case, your results are going to be limited to what you feel you deserve, what you feel you are capable of, and what you believe is possible because you lack the proper mindset. Where mindset and method intersect, you have ideation. Your ambitions stay in your mind because you lack the energy to do anything about them. Where all three intersect, you have the limitless state. And then there's a fourth I, which is integration. Throughout this book, you'll find exercises, studies, mental tools, and the results of exciting work being done both on the frontier of cognitive science and performance as well as in ancient wisdom. For example, how ancient civilizations remember generations of knowledge before external storage devices like the printing press. We'll approach the 3 M's in turn. In part 2, Limitless Mindset, you'll learn what is possible when you eradicate limiting beliefs. Part 3, Limitless Motivation, you'll discover why your purpose is your power and keys to unleash your drive and energy. In part 4, Limitless Methods, you'll discover how to learn at your best with proven processes, the tools and techniques that will propel you forward toward the life you desire and deserve. And at the end of the book, I give you a 10-day plan to jumpstart your progress toward a limitless week and a limitless life. When you finish this book, you'll have the ability to be limitless in any area that is important to you, whether it's academic, health, career, relationships, or personal growth. Since I never truly got to study at the X-Men school, I created it for you in an online quick learning academy where people of all ages from 195 nations train with us daily to unleash their mental superpowers. Consider Limitless your textbook. It would be an honor to be your Professor X, and I'm so excited that you have decided to take this journey with me. Class is now in session. And here's the best part. Your timing could not be any better. We now accept the fact that learning is a lifelong process of keeping abreast of change, and the most pressing task is to teach people how to learn. All right, y'all, that was chapter 1. I'm going to do chapter 2 tomorrow, why this matters now. Even though I want to keep reading. Listen to this. I'm a firm believer that we all have incredible superpowers that are waiting to be awakened. I'm not talking about the ability to fly, create ironclad armor, or shoot lasers from your eyes, but real-life practical abilities like flying through books, ironclad memory, laser focus, boundless creativity, clear thinking, mindfulness, superior mental attitude, and more. We are all superheroes in one way or another. We got to tap into that internal strength. We got to connect with our source, which is God, universe, divine creator, universal intelligence, whatever you want to call it. Just as every superhero has powers, so do they have arch nemesis. Enter the supervillain. Think the Joker to Batman, Lex Luthor to Superman. The villains we face may not look the same as they do in the movies, but they're still the bad guys. The ones you, as a superhero, need to vanquish and hold at bay. Modern-day supervillains get in our way and make life harder, keeping us from our potential. They hold us back and rob us of our productivity, prosperity, positivity, and peace of mind. And it's up to us to recognize and defeat them. You got to defeat your own demons. You got to slay your own ego, right? If you've ever read a comic book or watched a superhero movie, you know the supervillains are often born of unlikely places. But yeah, okay. I'm going to end there. we'll do a chapter a day, because chapters are pretty long, so it's exciting though. It's going to be chapter 3 is your limitless brain. And then we have how to read and remember this and any book. And then you got part 2, the limitless mindset, which is dispelling the 7 lies of learning. Intelligence is fixed. We only use 10% of our brains. Mistakes are failures. Knowledge is power. Learning new things is difficult. The criticism of other people matters. Genius is born, not made. And then part 3, limitless motivation, purpose, energy, small, simple steps, and flow. I'm excited for that. Part 4, limitless methods, transformation, focus, calm your mind, breathing, schedule time for distractions, study, active recall, manage the state you're in, music for the mind, take notes of taking notes, memory, visualization, association, emotion, and location. And then finally, it's going to be limitless you, the reward and return, thinking, the thinking hats, how are you smart, your learning style, mental models, thinking exponentially, and then speed reading, visual pacer, peripheral vision, and comprehension. So this book is all about unlocking your unlimitless mind to be able to learn faster, to fulfill your mission, your purpose, and create your dreams and desires, right guys? So super duper exciting. I'm so glad to have started this book finally and to be here reading it with all of you. All right, I hope that you all had a beautiful Thursday. Truth, love, and light. Namaste, y'all. Bye.